Hey guys! Okay, so I hope you got some ingredients together and you're ready to make some snacks. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to make our own spicy trail mix. Now, I made a mix of all of our favorite nuts. Feel free to use what you like. So in here we've got some of everything I have in my house. So it's got peanuts, it's got walnuts, it's got pecans, hazelnuts, cashews, and some pumpkin seeds. So we're just going to give them a little bit of a mix, and this one is going to be for our savory. Now, I decided while I was getting ready to set up that I wanted to do an Asian style savory as well. So once I mix these up, I'm going to split some in here. I'm the only one who will eat these ones, but I still want some. Okay, so this one we're going to set aside for our Asian. Now, the first thing we're going to do with these nuts is we're going to add some bacon fat that I rendered. Now, feel free to use any good oil that you want. You can use ghee in this, you can use butter, whatever you want. I really like bacon fat for the flavor that it gives. And with this amount of nuts, I'm going to put in about 3/4 of a tablespoon. And we're going to pop that in the microwave for about 30 seconds. Now, once that's melted on there, you can add whatever powdered flavoring you want. What I'm going to use today is a Frank's Red Hot powder. So we're going to make Frank's Red Hot nuts with that one, savory one. But feel free to switch it up. This is a cheese flavor that I buy bulk. This is a jalapeno cheese flavor that I buy bulk. You know, feel free to use a herb and garlic flavor. Honestly, the sky's the limit. Be creative. If you are taking nuts to work every day, it's nice to at least have a switch up in the flavors. Okay, so now this has started to warm, but it's not melted all the way through. You can still see the fat on there. So we're going to put it in for another 30 seconds. And then I'm just going to pour the spices right in the jar and shake it up. So while that's happening, we're going to get our sweet mix together. And this is exactly the same mix of nuts. And we're going to do a similar idea, but we're going to use coconut oil instead of bacon fat. And about the same, about 3/4 of a tablespoon. You want enough to coat it, but not enough to make them greasy. Because once we get it on there, we're just going to bake them in the oven. Okay, so that one's a little bit better melted. I'm going to give it a little bit of a shake. And these ones are just raw nuts. Okay, so they're all nicely coated. So we're going to add our Frank's Red Hot powder. And we like hot here, so I'm going to be quite generous. This is, of course, according to your taste and your household. I don't make an actual measure of this. I just mix it until they taste hot enough to me. And then I sprinkle a little bit more on top because because we love to live dangerously around here. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more there. And again, just give them a quick shake to coat all the nuts. And then I'm just going to pour them out on a little cookie sheet that I've got parchment paper on. And this doesn't need to be overly precise. You just don't want, you know, multiple layers of nuts. And then I'm going to just sprinkle a little lightly on the top. And this set is going to go in the oven. And these are going to be our Frank's Red Hot nuts for the week. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. Melt the sweet batch. And seeing how we knew it took a whole minute last time, we're going to do it for a minute this time. we're also going to do something that is nut-free, because maybe you really love trail mix, but you can't actually have nuts. So this is a mix of pumpkin seed, sunflower seed, dark blonde flax, and some hemp heart. So we're gonna make something yummy with that too, and we're gonna split it. So we'll do a savory mix and a sweet mix for that as well. And then I want to do an Asian blend. So for this one, we're gonna use sesame oil as the main oil for the fat. And I'm going to use a bit less of it just based on the fact that there's a lot less nuts. So I'm going to say about a teaspoon, and I really, really love the flavor that you get from sesame oil. So I'm going to give that a stir and see if that coats them well enough. Oh yeah, that's a nice coating on there. Now, to that I'm going to add a little bit of minced garlic and a little bit of minced ginger. I'm going to say about a quarter of a teaspoon, but again, according to your own particular taste, what you like. Garlic, and then I'm going to add some minced ginger. Now, this one is a debatable. I like to add just a teeny pinch of soy sauce. Now, some people avoid soy, and I get why they do. For me, I decided that in all honesty, for the amount that I use in this recipe, which will be about a quarter of a teaspoon, that I like it for the flavor. I know that there are some better soy sauces that are better and worse, but again, because I use about a quarter of a teaspoon in this recipe, I don't sweat it overly all that much. So then we're going to mix that all together and give it a little shake. Oh, look at that, I'm putting the wrong lid on there. And I don't know if you've tried sesame oil or not. It's a new find for me. I'm absolutely in love with the smell of the sesame oil. So this has got about a half of a tablespoon of sesame oil, about a quarter teaspoon of ginger and minced garlic, and then about a quarter of a teaspoon of soy. Feel free to omit if you do not want this for you. So we're going to spread this out, same thing. Just grab a spoon here. And this one is just a mix of my favorite nuts, and then I added some pumpkin seed as well. So I'm just going to spread this one out. And this one will go in the oven beside the Frank's Red Hot, and we'll continue on with the sweet flavor. So this one, I just want to taste it. That's perfect. This one's going to be the Asian. Well, there we go. I just realized I had my oven on defrost instead of bake. So we're going to turn that up a little bit. Okay. So those are our savory nuts. Let me grab out our sweet mix. Now, this one, we just put the mix of nuts, and then we added some lovely coconut oil to melt the coat. And to this one, we're going to add a cinnamon mix and some sweetener. And again, that is to your flavor. This is an apple pie bake seasoning, so it's got a few things in addition to cinnamon in there. And I'm going to use a monk fruit blend sweetener for this one. Feel free to use the sweetener of your choice. And this is going to give you a nice sweet cinnamon mixed glazed nut. So you can see it's nicely glazed there. So we're going to pour that out onto our tray. And I think, let's smooth this out a little bit. Then I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit more cinnamon and sweetener on top. And again, this is to your own personal preference. I like a little on the top because then it sort of glazes them in. So these ones are our sweet ones, and they're ready to go in the oven when the next ones come out. Now I also put a dozen eggs on the stove to boil. We're going to do some funky deviled eggs today too. Okay, now we're going to do something with our non-seed seeds, and let's see if I've got another pan so that we can do some that are sweet and some that are not. Okay, Eureka, one more. Let me just cut a parchment paper for it. Okay, there we go for that one. Okay, so I'm going to grab another jar so we can divide that. You know what, just a cup, because why not? That'll work just fine too. So the first thing we're going to do is mix this up. And this is nut free, so this one is sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, hemp heart, blonde, and dark flax seeds. So we'll divide this in half. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put some with rendered bacon fat. Okay, I'm going to put that in the microwave. Okay, so this is a first peek at our Frank's Red Hot. I'm going to give them a little stir and pop them back in the oven. Okay. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with these ones. We're going to do, actually, you know what, rather than doing exactly the same, let's do something a little bit different. Instead of doing Frank's Red on those ones, let's do some garlic spread instead. So, what we have in the oven right now is we made some Frank's Red Hot mixed nuts, and we've got some Asian style mixed nuts with sesame oil, ginger, and garlic, with just a touch of soy, but feel free to omit that if you want to. And right now, we're doing a nut-free trail mix. So this one is all seeds, and it's got some rendered bacon fat in there. And then we're going to add this really nice garlic seasoning to it. I thought I had some of that powdered ranch stuff, and I was looking for it earlier today, and I apparently don't. It's a tzatziki. But this is going to be really nice. I use this garlic spread for a lot of different things in my sauces, in my soups. So I'm confident that we'll like this one as well. And that smells really nice. So then we're just going to spread it out on top of our parchment paper to bake it in. And this is, you know what, if you love a trail mix but you can't have nuts and, you know, everybody else gets to have them and they're a great convenient snack. You can just put them in, you know, a plastic container or a jar or a bag to take with you. And it kind of sucks if you like convenience but you don't have, you know, you can't have nuts. So this one is our nut free, and it's going to be the herb and garlic. I'm going to set it aside to go in the oven next. And quick rinse this for the sweet one. Okay. That is a really nice taste, by the way. Okay, so then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put the other half of the mix in, and we're going to melt it with coconut oil because we're going to make this one sweet. I felt in kind of an 80s mood for music today, so you guys are going to have to bear with me. I'm feeling all 80s child today. And it's coconut oil. My hands are dry. No point in wiping it off. Okay, I'm going to put this in the microwave to melt. And I'm going to check on our nuts that are in the oven. Oh, almost done. So we can swap them out pretty quick. And this one we're just going to do a basic cinnamon and sweetener, the same as we did with the nuts, because it'll be quick and easy, and I think it will be yummy. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee. And curious, do you guys do bulletproof coffee? Yay? Nay? I'm slightly obsessed with it, and I like it a really lot. Okay, now for sweetener, again, today we're using monk fruit blend, but feel free to use whatever sweetener you prefer. Okay, and those ones are all done. So this one is just with our coconut oil melted, and we're going to add a mixed cinnamon, and again, this one is an apple pie mix, so it's got a few different kind of sweeteners in there. And then we'll just give that a nice stir. And this, if you're counting and you want to measure the exact amount of sugar, feel free to. I just sweeten it to the taste that I like in my house, and that changes all of the time. When I first started, I liked a lot of sweetener in things. I find as time goes on, I use less and less of it, and I will give you a pro tip. Whenever I try a brand new keto baking recipe, I cut the sweetener that they call for in half, and then I add to taste, because I find personally that artificial sweetener is a lot stronger. It's got more bite to it. It's got more sweetness depending on what kind you're using. So I find, just for me, for my own personal taste, that a lot of the times the recipes are too sweet. And I can always add more sweetener, but I can't take sweetener out. So, yeah, that's perfect. So this is our nutless mix with coconut oil and cinnamon and sweetener. So I'm going to take out the first set, and we're going to take a peek at those and let them cool off. And then we're going to start mixing some pie crust. Oh, those are beautiful. I don't know if you guys can still hear them sizzling. You'll have to give me a thumbs up if you can hear that sizzle. So these ones are Frank's Red Hot Toasted Nuts. I'm going to just get a cooling rack out and start a pile on the table so that we can get them all set up and take pictures after. And the next one is our Asian Creation. And this one is a mix of sesame oil, ginger, garlic, and a teeny bit of soy. Now, into the oven now, I am popping the sweet mix, which is the sweet mix nuts with cinnamon. And I'm popping in the savory no nut mix at the same time. Okay. Set up a couple more cooling racks here. Excellent. Now, later we're just going to throw those into a jar or a bag or whatever to take to work. In all honesty, this will last my house the week for sure. And you know what, possibly a little bit longer depending on how snacky my guy is. He's always in my nut containers on the counter because they're quick and convenient, easy snacks. So when I make him a mix of flavored stuff, sometimes it disappears pretty quick. Now, when the sweet ones cool, we're going to add just a handful of the Krista chips in with it too. So it'll be kind of a sweet snack with a little tail of chocolate. I really like these ones. I don't know if they're available where you are. They're only just available where I am. But I don't find them overly sweet. If you don't have access to, you can make your own chocolate chips. And the way that you do that is you get a plain unsweetened baker's chocolate. You warm it up, you add sweetener, and then the pick butt part, and that is just to blob it all out onto parchment paper and then make chips. But it can be done. I saw a recipe for it, and I think I might even actually try that one time. Okay, so we've got those ones in there. Now, the next thing we're going to do today is we're going to make some mini pie crusts. The very first time I tried keto pie crust, and it was one of the very, very first things I experimented with, and I was so excited that I did because it was a home run hit right away. And what I did was I looked at the basic recipe. Now, the basic recipe I used, I will post in the links for you, calls for 2.5 cups of almond flour, 1/3 of a cup of erythritol sweetener, 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 of a cup of ghee, 1 egg, and vanilla to taste if you want, optional. So what I did when I looked at this recipe right away was I decided I wasn't really all that good at baking in my old life, and I could wreck a box cake. So I was really leery to try any keto baking. So I tried it as a half recipe. So I split it in half, and I made half as a sweet crust and half as a savory crust. Now, what I had already learned by that point was that I didn't really care for things that were solely made of almond flour. By that point, I had already started to experiment with different kinds of nut and seed flours. So we're going to do that today. We're going to split this basic recipe in half, and we're going to do one that is a nut mix. And because I have a girlfriend who's nut-free, we're going to do one that's completely nut-free as well. So we're going to take our base measurements, which is our 2.5 cups, and we're going to divide that in half. So each batch is going to have 1.25 cups. And so for the nut-free one, we're going to make a mix of coconut meal and sesame flour. So that's 1/2 cup. And then we're going to put some sesame flour. And this one I grind up out of sesame seeds. And this is about 1/3 of a cup. So we're going to do this with sesame flour, and we're going to use some sunflower flour, which I also just grind up from sunflower seeds. Because why not? Why not go nut-free when you can or when you need to? Okay, so I'm going to check, speaking of nuts, check on our nuts real quick. Because I can hear stuff popping and a sizzling. Okay, so our non-nut mix is already ready. Because this one will toast a lot quicker. It's just seeds. So you want to just give it a little stir, and this one is our herb and garlic. And I'm going to set it down to cool as well. Because you don't want to actually blacken your seeds, you just want to slightly brown them. Okay, take a peek at our sweet nuts here. Oh, that smells amazing. So these ones are about halfway. So I'm going to give these ones a stir. I'm going to pop them back in, and I'm going to put them in with our sweet faux nuts. With the seed mix. Oh, definitely smells amazing. And I'm totally eating the peanuts that ran away. They gotta cool off though. And again, you don't have to have peanuts in your mix if you don't want. This is just my preference. So, this is our flour base for the sweet one. Now, for the savory, let's go walnut pecan. That's my favorite combo. And this one is my pecan flour. And again, I just buy them as whole nuts and I grind this flour up at home. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on specialty nuts. I just buy them as a whole nut. So this one is a cup of walnut flour and a quarter of a cup of pecan flour. So these are our bases. We're going to add cinnamon to the sweet and sweetener. And again, I find it's a two-taste thing. I taste the batter when I mix it. If it tastes good, I know that's going to be what I want it to be. If you're just starting out, err on the side of less sweetener because you can always put some in. You can't take any out. And I think I'm going to need slightly bigger bowls to mix those too. Let's pour this into a slightly bigger bowl. Okay, and then into the savory one, we're going to add cracked pepper. I like a lot of cracked pepper. A little bit of Himalayan salt, which we're going to add to the sweet one as well. The original recipe does call for a pinch of salt. And then I'm going to add my Italian herb mix. And again, feel free to add anything in here that you want. This would be another great spot for that Frank's Red Hot powder. Oh my god, piece of paper in there. Okay, so there's our savory, there's our sweet. Now, the last thing we're going to add to it is the original recipe calls for a quarter cup, so we're going to use 1/8 of a cup instead of our oil. So we're going to use coconut oil for the sweet. And it says that you want to melt it down and see it melted. So I'm going to throw some in the microwave and we're going to melt about 1/8 of a cup. And I'm going to pull out our non-seed seeds. Okay. Oh, so these are our sweet non-nut trail mix. And our sweet nut mix. Okay, so that's those. Okay, so this is a little bit more than what we want, so I'm just going to pour it back into my coconut oil. It will solidify again. It won't hurt anything, I promise. Okay, so this is for the sweet one. Now we're going to do the same thing for the savory with our rendered bacon fat. This is how I use all of my spoons. And I'm going to say by guessing amount of the coconut oil that it's about 1.5 tablespoons. So we're going to melt that one. And then the last ingredient is 1 egg. So we're just going to split that between the two batches. We're just going to mix the egg and split it. Now, if you just want to do 1/2 of a batch and, you know, you don't have a use for another 1/2 of an egg, then I recommend picking up some of the egg beaters. They're just a liquid egg. You can pour out by the teaspoon, tablespoon, how much egg you need. Okay, so let me grab out. Okay, so again, same thing with our bacon grease. I've got more than I want, so I'm just going to spoon some out and put it back into my jar to solidify again. You don't want it to be an overly greasy crust. So then we're going to add our rendered bacon fat, and it's going to make it taste so nice. Okay, and then we're going to mix our 1 egg and split it. The recipe also calls to put parchment paper at the bottom of your pan and spray it. I have never put parchment paper because I do them in a muffin tin. I've never had an issue with it. I find that the crust has enough oil in it that they pop out okay. But just to be safe, I would say spray them, just as a tale of caution. So we're going to take our 1 egg and we're going to divide it in between our 2 batches. And then we're just going to mix it into our crust. And our sweet one, again, is going to be nut-free. This one has sesame flour and coconut meal as opposed to almond flour. And I find, honestly, with any almond flour recipe, seed for seed, you can pretty much swap out. The only issue that you have is if something says it's made to be out of coconut flour, that will expand a lot in water. So if you're switching, say, an almond flour for coconut flour, you want to use about a 1-to-3 ratio. So if it says a cup of almond flour and you want to use coconut flour instead, you only want to use about 1/3 of a cup. So this is mixed. I'm just going to throw them in the fridge real quick because that's the last step. You want them to set and chill. It's going to make it a lot easier to press. Now, I have seen different pie recipes that are more of a roll out dough. This one is just a press it into your pan, and it's going to be a really nice rustic kind of dough. So this one's going to be our savory, and this we made out of walnut and pumpkin. And this one's going to be our sweet. So I'm going to pop them in the fridge. And while I'm in here, I'm going to show you guys our leftover pizza from last night, because I made the very first ever flathead pizza at my house, and I made 6 mini pizzas thinking for 3 adults, that's 2 mini pizzas a piece, and it was so filling that we each only ate 1 pizza. And I will say, when at my house, my guy agreed that it's better than a regular pizza crust. So this is the hot pink one that I made, and look at how it's an actual, you could send that with your kids to school, leftover lunch from last night's pizza. And I'm just going to warm it up a little bit later, and we're going to have that for a snack. And then we had another one. Isaac ate part of his and part of the other flavor. And we had 1 dessert pizza left over as well. So a little goes a long way when you're cooking keto. And I think that maybe in the beginning it might seem like it's going to cost you a little bit more money. Up front, buying the nuts, the extra eggs, the higher quality fats and the oils that I needed, it was a small upfront investment. But I would say that in the long run, we eat less food because we eat better quality food. So all in all, once it's all said and done, and not everyone in my house eats keto, it's mostly just me. So the savings that I see are really in the small things. I buy them less potato chips. I used to, get a half of a cart of potato chips, and when I go now, I'll buy them each 1 bag or 2 because they'll have some of my nut snacks or my pepperoni chips or something like that instead. And I find even my son making healthier choices on his own. When I told him last time he could pick 3 bags of chips, he came back with 1. So I don't think you necessarily have to pressure your family into changing the way that they eat. I think that when they see that it's easy and it's fun and the food is really good, I think they're going to fall in love with it all by themselves. And I don't think you're going to have to chase your kids around and say, hey, eat your veggies. You know, they're going to say, hey, Mom, did you see that video that Dory made about hot pink veggies? Can we do that? So I say let's do that. You know, let's have a little fun with it, and let's, you know, make eating exciting again. We get to eat all the good foods, everything that's healthy and enjoyable. I have found a keto version of. So I just want to say that to you guys. When you realize that you can have what you want, it's just a slightly different version, that's going to make the world of difference to you. So we're just going to quick spray these pans. And again, I buy an olive oil spray, but feel free to do it with a coconut oil, to do it with any of your good fats that you really like. This is just easier and quicker for me to give a quick spray, and a million times better than the chemical canola oil one that I used to use. So again, better or worse, this is still chemical, it's still processed, but it's better than what I used to buy. Okay, so I'm going to turn up my eggs just a little bit because I'm hoping we can get those out and cool them in time to do something with those for you guys today. So we're going to start with the savory crust, just because I know that with non-nut flours they need a little bit more time to absorb the moisture. So we're going to divide it into 12. The original recipe is enough to make one large pie crust, but I do find that for me it is enough to make 2 trays of little mini muffins. So we're just gonna rough divide them into 3s because it makes it easier to spoon out how much you need. In all honesty, it's about 1/2 tablespoon. So we're just gonna spoon that into each, and then I'm going to show you guys how to push them down, because it's quick and easy. Like, you just spoon them in, you give them a little smush down, you poke them with the fork so they don't swell up, and then in the oven they go. So it really isn't an overly complicated recipe to make, and what I love is it's the best quick, easy snacks, desserts, on-the-go lunches that you could hope for. One of these with a little dob of whipped cream and a blackberry, and I don't feel like I missed out on anything. And this was one of the very first recipes that I found when I first started doing ketogenic eating that made me feel like I was the queen of the world, because all of a sudden there wasn't anything I couldn't have. So we've just blobbed them in, and we're honestly just going to give them a little press down with our fingers so that it makes a little cup, and then into the oven they're going to go. And if you find they're a little bit short, just add a little bit more. A nice thick cup is good too. A thinner cup, it just depends on what you like. And with the savory cups, what I do with them, these are my snack size, but if I'm making them for dinners, I will use a regular size muffin tin. Now, what I do with those is on nights when we have, like, it's hamburger hash night and everybody's having that on a pasta, but I don't feel like having a vegetable today, I will throw that inside of one of the savory cups, so it's like a little meat pie. Awesome. Leftovers, loaded cauliflower in a savory cup as a leftover for a work snack. I don't even know how to say. It's so amazing. But they're also a really good base for egg cups. So once you've made your base, feel free to experiment and see what other things you can put inside of them, because honestly, sky's the limit. They would make a great taco bowl. They would make just about anything, and it's just a quick, easy 1.5 cups of whatever flour you like. And what I really love about keto baking is that I find it's different. I wasn't a good wheat baker. I won't lie to you guys. So when you see me do this stuff and you think, oh, Dory, you're really good at that, but you're really good at that. You were a good baker. I wasn't. When I say I could ruin a box cake, I mean I ruined a box cake. Did you know you could do that? If you overmix that, You could ruin box cake. You could do it to muffins too, which I'm famous for. I don't think I ever made a successful pie crust ever pre-keto. I always bought pre-made crusts because although I could make a pie filling like nobody's business, there was no way on this earth that I could make a decent pie crust. So I resorted to, you know, the pre-bought, pre-bleached out, really, really bad for you crust because I didn't have any other choice. I was not able to bake. So for me, this was life-changing. It was really neat to find a baking that is more by feel, because I find that wheat baking is very precise. You have to, this measurement is exactly important. That measurement is exactly important. And I find, at least for me personally, ketogenic baking is more like how I cook. And I cook by feel. Oh, today I feel like a little bit of this, and oh, I took out ground beef and I'm gonna throw in this and that, and I never really have a plan. And I find that I can do that with the keto baking as well, because I can start with a base recipe that I want, and I can think, oh, I really want that flavor today. So I'm gonna quick rinse out, and we're gonna pop these ones in the oven. Now, I'm going to share with you, if you have a weird touchy food thing, I love you still. I know lots of people who don't like to touch gooey things, and this is what I'm going to say to you. I'm your new best friend, and I'll show you how to do it without touching it, because I know right now you're looking at this recipe and you're saying, oh, I really want to eat that, but if I have to touch all that gooey stuff, it's not worth it. Okay, so that one is into the oven, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it the touch-free way. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put a little blob of crust in each. And this one firmed up really nice while we let it chill a little bit longer. So that's ideally what you want. And seems how I said it was going to be touch-free, let's actually do that, Dory. Because I know I have friends who can't touch things. And it is what it is. If it's something that you want to try and touching it is going to stop you from trying it, I say let's figure out a way to fix that too. So this one is coconut meal and sesame seed flour with some sunflower seed flour in there as well. Okay, so we've got all our blobs in there. Let's grab us a piece of plastic wrap. And we're just going to put a piece of plastic wrap over the top, and we're going to use that to poke them in. A, it's less messy. B, I don't have to run away from you guys to wash my hands. And C, I don't know why I never thought of this before. I don't know, crazy lady. This is like life-changing idea right here. That was so much easier than doing it the other way. We are going to have to put a couple blobs in a couple spots, but we just discovered something new together. You guys get half credit. That's how it works. You were standing there when I had the thought. You get half the credit. That is kind of how I roll. It's funny, but I do. Okay, so we're just going to add a little bit more to each of these because we want to divide it up in between the 12. I don't really want to end up with leftovers. Although maybe I do. I don't know. There isn't anything in here that you couldn't flavor and eat raw either if you're one of those raw cake dough people. Now, the original recipe calls to bake the crust for 10 to 12 minutes. I find because you're using them in a smaller quantity, it takes closer to 6 to 8 minutes to cook them. This recipe you can add as a baked shell later as well. So if you've got a recipe that calls to be double baked, these ones can be used for that. I will often reheat them in the oven as opposed to in the microwave because it will re-crisp them. So, pro tip, if you are putting them in the freezer for snacks and lunches, when you go to heat them up, just put them back into the tin and pop them into the oven to warm up, and they will re-crisp back up for you and be just like when they were fresh and you first made them. And honestly, this is something quick and easy that you could make with your kids, and it's fun for them. They can, you know, make a challenge of the week. What am I going to put in my cups today? So then we're just going to give them a quick poke in the middle so that they don't expand up too much. And these ones are going to go in the oven as well. Our first ones are almost done. I'm going to take them out so you guys can see them at the halfway, just so you have an idea of when they're fully crisp. Now, what I'm going to tell you about any nut baking, because again, it's different. If you make it overcooked, it's going to be crumbly and it's going to fall apart. So with any of my cookies, I make sure that they're only just brown around the edges and I know they're done. So same thing with this. If I want more of a fluffy muffin type texture, I pull them out at this point when they're just starting to get brown. Also, if I know I'm going to double bake them, this is when I will take them out. And you can see they've got lots of the really nice natural bacon fat in there that's going to soak in and absorb. And again, this is a 12 servings of half of the pie crust. So the carbs in them is less than, I think, a half of a carb per little cup, depending on what you're putting into it. So I'm going to put the sweet ones in to bake. And I'm going to let these savory ones cool just a minute because I want to pop one or two out as a pre-cook and show you, and then I want to pop the other ones back into the microwave, in the oven, on my little convection oven. So now that these have cooled off, I'm going to show you guys the nuts that we made. These ones are the Frank's Red Hot Nut Mix. And again, I'm just going to throw them into jars and bags for the week when they're fully cooled off. So this one is a powdered Frank's Red Hot with a rendered bacon fat and then just baked until it's crispy. And then a mix of all of the nuts that we like at my house. This one is the Asian inspired mix, and this one has sesame oil, minced garlic, minced ginger, and a tiny touch of soy. Feel free to omit the soy if you don't care for it. I just like the dark color and smoky flavor it gives. And these ones will be a little bit more candied, so we'll have to break them up a bit. But this is our candied nut mix, and this one is sweetener and cinnamon and coconut oil. And then we did a non-nut mix. So we did a sweet one that's all seeds. It's got pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, hemp heart, and dark and light flax. And then we did the same thing. This one is the sweet one. You can see it's like a brittle. We're going to break that one up. And this one we made out of a garlic flavor. So even if you can't have nuts, you can still have trail mix. It's just a little bit different kind of trail mix. Okay. So that has cooled down a little bit, not an awful lot, but I think I might can get one out of there to show you guys. Now again, if I know that I'm going to double bake them, I will pull them out at this point because then I can double bake them and they're not overly browned. Now I'll break this one so you can see the texture of it. This one would be more like a muffin, but if you want it to be more crisp like a pie crust, we're going to pop them back in the oven for that. But just like that, they're good and they're ready to go. But I'm going to make them just a little bit more browned. And because they only take 6 minutes to make in the oven, they are really a good quick alternative. Now, this non-seed one that's sweetened, we're going to break that up and we're going to add a couple chocolate chips, and I'm just going to throw it into a bag to go. Now again, the nice thing about having your parchment paper handy is that you can just pick it up and away you go. Okay, so we're going to break that up a little bit, and we're just going to throw in, you know, a half a dozen, a small handful of Krista chips. And then you've got a really nice nut-free sweet trail mix to go to work, to go with your kids to school. And that's that one. Done. Now this one is still a little bit warm because the nuts are bigger. I'm going to throw this one in the fridge just for a couple minutes to continue cooling. Okay, now we're going to pull out our other pie crusts as soon as I find my oven mitt. There it is. Okay. So these ones are savory crusts back out, and I'm going to say it went in for about another, what, 2.5 minutes? So you can see that they're starting to get more golden around the edges. That's when they're done. So those ones are going on the cooling rack. And the sweet ones are just about done as well. These are great for spaghetti night too, if you're looking for something to throw a sauce into. Okay. Now, I had planned to do some rainbow hard-boiled eggs with you guys too, but unfortunately my eggs aren't going to be ready in time. So I think we're going to have to save that for the next project. But I'm going to show you what I would put in some of the other cups. So last night I made up some colored whipping cream for our dessert pizza. So once they cool, and before I post the pictures on my feed for you guys, I'm just going to put some fun colored whipping cream in there, a little bit of sparkle, and a blackberry. So when you check my feed later, I'm going to pretty up one or two of the little dessert ones and see if I can't find something quick and easy and interesting to throw into the savory ones for you guys too, so you can see. So I'm going to grab out the sweet crust and let you have a peek at it, and then we're going to sign off for today. So these ones are our sweet crust, and this one is nut-free as well. We made that one out of coconut meal, sunflower oil, sunflower flour, and sesame flour. Okay. Thanks for hanging out with me on Sunday, guys. And I think every Sunday we're going to do meal prep wars, because I know a lot of you do meal prep and a lot of you want to learn more about meal prep. I don't work outside of the home, so I don't necessarily need to pack things to go, but I find even at home having something handy that I love makes all the difference in the world. If I am skulking around my house in that moment where I'm starving to death and I don't have anything keto friendly to eat, I will eat other things. So I find for me, having a few snacks ready, having nuts on the counter, having cheese cut up in the freezer, slices of pepperoni, deli meat, pickles, things handy and easy to grab are key for me. So if that's you, we're going to get together every Sunday and we're going to learn different meal preps. So today was snacks. Last week we did a kids meal prep. So it's going to be different, and I'm not sure exactly what time it's going to be, because depending on the meal, we know how we're going to do this, guys. Every day I sign on live and I do a quick, easy recipe with you. And if you catch me, awesome. If not, watch the replay. So I hope to see you guys tomorrow. And I don't know what we're making yet. So it's going to be Monday. I'm thinking something to fix the Monday blahs. Send me a message and let me know what you guys want to see tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great day. Happy Sunday.